What is up, my friends? Exabyte Coding here. I'm back, even though I never left. I'm going to be showing you how to make a platformer in Unity. Very, very, very popular genre. Everyone wants to make a platformer these days. You could be one of those people. So here we are in Unity. I just created a new project, set it to 2D. You know, I expect you to know the UI a bit in Unity. I'm not going to be explaining what this does and what this does. That will be another video. But I will be showing you how to make a platformer once you've learned how to make or how to use Unity. Okay. Yeah. So here we are, scene. There's nothing here. What we're gonna do is, in this episode, we will be making the player, which will be able to move. We'll also be making a ground, which the player can fall on, and yeah, physics. So jumping will come next episode, but in this episode we will just have basic movement. So what I'm gonna do first is, in the project tab, wherever it is for you in Unity, for me it's right here, I'm gonna right click, create folder. Organization is key in game development, remember that. I'm going to call this folder sprites, and this will hold all of our game images, okay? And we're going to make another folder called scripts. This folder will hold man, I cannot talk today. This folder will hold all of our scripts which will run in the game. Okay, now I did make two basic sprites for the purpose of this tutorial. You can download them, you don't have to. They're really basic. I made them in like 4.5 seconds. But anyways, right click on the sprites folder and import new asset. So I already have, like I said, two sprites made right here. Nothing special. You can tell these are poop sprites, but you know, just have a if you want to make your own, if you want to follow this tutorial, make a player sprite that's 16 by 16 pixels, okay, and the block 16 by 16. Or you can download these two from the description. And anyways, import player.png, right click on sprites again, import new asset, and import block.png. Sorry if I'm like talking weird, I'm really tired, trying to not die. Right, anyways, so on your sprites folder you have block and player. Click on block, and then on your inspector tab, make sure you set it to 16 pixels per unit in filter mode to point, and then hit apply. And likewise for the player, 16 and point. The reason we're setting the filter mode to point is so it doesn't look blurry in game. Right, okay. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm going to drag in the block into the scene. What I'm gonna do is add component box collider 2D. This will make it so it can have collisions, it interacts with physics. That's what we need because the player is going to be landing on it, and this will prevent the player from falling through it. Right, so I'm gonna set the position here in the inspector to 0, 0, 0. This is just for just a habit. I have to center everything. So I'm gonna use the shortcut Control D to duplicate it, and then I'm gonna click on this tool, the move tool, and since I just duplicated it, I'm gonna move it over here. So now I have two blocks, and I'm gonna Control D, duplicate this block again, and then move it over here. Control D, move it over here. So now I have a basic. Actually, let's add one more. I have a basic platform. Okay, so now we have a camera, and we have all these platforms. What I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to right click and create an empty game. Ooh, can't talk. Again, sorry about that. Create an empty game object, and I'm going to call it platform. And I'm going to select all of these using control and clicking on all of them, or you can just do it in the scene. And I'm going to drag them into this new empty game object. This is just for organization. So now if I just drag this around, it drags all of them. You don't have to, I just prefer to do that to keep my game organized. I'm going to center it again, have it. So then I'm just going to close that off. So we have a platform. Now we're going to drag the player into the scene, and and we're gonna add a component under the inspector for the player. Box collider, 2D, obviously. Make sure you don't add a regular one or it won't work. And then rigid body, 2D. Again, it has to be the 2D one. The 2D one. Okay. Now that we've done that, if we press, I'm gonna move him up a bit, but if we press the play button, you'll see that he falls and bam. Unplay that. And again, selecting the player on the inspector, go down to the rigid body, go to constraints, and freeze rotation. This will make it so he doesn't rotate, and that could produce some pretty ugly results, so we don't want any rotations on the player. Right, now we want to give him movement. That's the point of a platformer. We're going to right click on the scripts folder that we made recently and create C# script. And we're going to call this one player movement. Then hit enter. We just made a new script. Now we want to click on the player, scroll down, add component, and type in the name of our script. The way Unity works is you make a script, right, and then you apply it to the object that you want it to run on. So we created the script, we applied it to the player. Now it doesn't do anything yet, so we need to actually make it do stuff. Come back over here, right click on it, and don't right click on it, just double click on it. I will be using Visual Studio to edit my code. You might have MonoDevelop if you just installed Unity. I don't like MonoDevelop, but if you're using that, it's fine. Just as long as you see the code and you can edit it, you'll be fine. So here we are in the public class player movement, which is what we just made. So we want to define a few variables right here, right after the class declaration. We're going to put public float player speed. This is a value that will represent how fast the player will move. We will set that value in a second. Not going to do that yet. So we're going to go into the update. This is called every frame, as it says on this comment. Every frame this code will run. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a float value x. Actually, we'll call it input x equals input dot get axis horizontal. Oops. Now let me explain this. What it's doing, first let me explain this part. Input dot get axis horizontal will return a number -1, 0, or 1. And the way that value changes is if I'm pressing the A key or the left arrow. So if I want to move left, this is equal to -1. If I'm not pressing anything, this is equal to 0. And if I'm pressing D or the right arrow, this will return +1. It's specifically those keys. So this will let us work with horizontal movement. So it's just setting this number, this float, to whatever this is. I hope I didn't explain that horribly. I probably did. But again, there are there's documentation links in the description if you're interested. Right. So now that we have this float to equal this, on the next line we want to move the player by whatever this is. So what I'm going to do is transform. Transform is pointing to this variable is a predefined variable, and this points to whatever object this script is on. In this case it's on the player, so transform is the player. So transform dot translate. This is a method that will translate the player in whatever direction we want it to. So it takes in a vector 3, so we're going to type in new vector. We'll give it a vector 2, since we're working with 2D, we don't really need the third axis. So in here it's going to take in an x. So the x is going to be the input x multiplied by the player's speed. And then on the y-axis, we don't want it to move by anything, so we'll set that to 0. So make sure you press Control S, save it, or you can just press save up here. And so this is our player movement script. Now if we go back into Unity and we click on the player, scroll down, player speed. We're gonna give him a speed of 0.1. That seems like a that seems like a small number, but you'll understand why I put 0.1. If I press D, he's already moving pretty fast. D, A, and look, we've already got player movement. Wasn't that easy? if you noticed, I don't really like the way he's colliding with the ground, so I'm gonna come back here. I'm gonna click on the player. I'm gonna go to the box collider and edit collider, and I'm actually just gonna make it a tad bit smaller. And also, I'm gonna click on the player, and I'm gonna change his position. Again, this is optional, you don't have to do this, but I'm gonna make it so the Z is -1. So now it renders the player over the tiles. So now you can see how it renders the platform behind the player. Again, that's up to you if you want to do that, but yeah, that's it for the first episode. Now I'm gonna press Control S to save this, and it'll put you in the root directory of the project, so just save it there. I'm gonna call this main scene, and it'll be here in your project. So yeah, I'm just gonna quickly make this level a bit bigger. Control D to duplicate, Control D. Yeah, I won't be able to actually jump, but I'll be able to move around and fall, and yeah, we've got basic movement. Stay tuned for the next episode. The point of the series is to be a very, very, very fast way on how to make a platformer in Unity. Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you want to see more. Good night.